Good evening. The May 27th meeting of the Evanston City Council will come to order. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Harris? Councilmember Isles will not be here today. Councilmember Newsma?
Here.
Councilmember Burns is here and will be here shortly. Councilmember Sufferton?
Here.
Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember Rogers?
Here.
Councilmember Hedakaris?
Here.
Councilmember Kelly?
Here.
Mayor Biss?
Here. We have a quorum present and are prepared to do our work for the evening. There is no one seeking to participate virtually, so we can skip that item on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is my public announcements and proclamations, of which there's sort of one and a half. The first is a proclamation of myalgic encephalomyelitis / chronic fatigue syndrome, ME/CFS Awareness Day. I'll read it in a moment, but I wanted to first recognize Rebecca Grobel-Hall, who is here to accept the proclamation, and just on a personal note to thank you for your advocacy on this. Rebecca introduced me to her son, Gabe. She and he both have acted as educators to help raise awareness of this, both to me and to other folks up here and to other government officials and those in the research community. And I particularly want to just mention a really powerful and moving essay that she sent me, written by Gabe, called "How Many Doctors Does It Take to Change a Light Bulb?" which was just a really moving illustration of what the circumstances are for those who are experiencing these circumstances. And I just want to thank you. You've taught me a lot, and I know you've done a lot, not only for Gabe, but for many more in the community. And so with that, whereas myalgic encephalomyelitis, ME, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome, CFS, is a complex, debilitating neurological and immunological disease that affects millions worldwide, including an estimated 2 to 3 million people in the United States. And whereas ME/CFS is characterized by profound fatigue, post-exertional malaise, a worsening of symptoms after even minor exertion, cognitive impairment or brain fog, chronic pain, immune dysfunction, dizziness, and a range of other disabling symptoms that significantly reduce quality of life. And whereas ME/CFS can affect individuals of all ages, genders, and backgrounds, often leaving patients bedridden or housebound for years or even a lifetime, with only a small percentage achieving full recovery. And whereas scientific research has demonstrated that ME/CFS is a serious multi-system disease, yet it remains underfunded, under-researched, and widely misunderstood, contributing to significant delays in diagnosis, limited treatment options, and ongoing stigma for patients. And whereas over 65 million people worldwide, including those suffering from long COVID and other post-viral conditions, now face similar challenges, highlighting the urgent need for increased biomedical research, healthcare provider education, and public awareness of infection-associated chronic conditions. And whereas the economic impact of ME/CFS in the U.S. alone is estimated to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars annually due to lost productivity, medical costs, and the need for full-time caregiving, and whereas recognizing ME/CFS and related conditions as serious public health concerns will help accelerate research funding, improve clinical care, and promote policies that support affected individuals and their families, now therefore I do hereby proclaim May 12, 2025 as myalgic encephalomyelitis chronic fatigue syndrome Awareness Day. In recognition of the millions of people living with ME/CFS and related post-infectious diseases, I urge healthcare providers, researchers, policymakers, and the public to increase awareness, advance research, and provide compassionate support for those impacted by these debilitating conditions. And I would just ask the council and those in the public to join me in recognizing Rebecca and thanking her for her advocacy.
Thank you so much. Yes, please.
So that my guys. And I should say your voice now. Okay. Let me compose myself first. Thank you, Mayor Biss and City Council, for your recognition of World ME Day. My name is Rebecca Grobel. I'm a Ninth Ward resident and the volunteer co-lead for Solve ME. I'm the co-lead for Illinois. Recognizing myalgic encephalomyelitis is a win for ME and a win for all infection-associated chronic conditions such as long COVID, fibromyalgia, any of the dysautonomias, and there's so many more. As Evanstonians, we're fortunate to have leadership in Mayor Biss, State Majority Leader Robin Gable, and Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, who have spoken up in support of ME Day, recognizing the millions of patients and acknowledging this horrible disease is underfunded and under-researched. I came to advocacy as a result of my 26-year-old son not recovering from mono. Gabe's diagnosis, severe myalgic encephalomyelitis. He has been bedbound for 6 years now, more than a fifth of his life. I am his round-the-clock caretaker. Gabe relies on my husband and I for everything: toileting, adjusting pillows, adjusting blankets. Gabe eats with his fingers. But there was a time a feeding tube was his only means of nutrition. Previous to ME, Gabe was an active college student, worked part-time, served on the board of a student organization, and was a volunteer math tutor for Chicago Public Schools. His mind is fine, but he's trapped in a body that doesn't work. Mayor Biss had mentioned a piece he had written and published. He wrote that about a year ago, and it was published this January in a literary magazine. He can no longer do that. He can no longer, as a writer, his stories remain in his head. Gabe is a member of a club no one should be a member of. ME affects millions and millions of Americans. It is not rare, and 25% of those are bedridden, like my son. The economic burden is in the hundreds of billions. There are no FDA-approved treatments or cures. In the US, there are less than 30 physicians with the expertise required to treat ME. The Chicago area, home to multiple academic medical centers, has none. They're all on the coasts. Unfortunately, the premier ME research institute in the country and the world that was based at Columbia University recently shuttered due to the termination of grants by the current federal administration. Raising awareness of ME, its impact, and the need for research and funding is my cause. But my son Gabriel is my reason why. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your advocacy. The next item on the agenda is proclamation declaring Evanston Asian, South Asian, and Pacific Islander American Heritage Month. Melissa Raymond Molitor, who is here to accept this, organized her evening around a 5:30 start time, I'll just say, and is no longer with us. And so I would invite anyone who's watching tonight to join us this Saturday at the Umbrella Festival, which has become a beloved part of the Evanston cultural and social calendar. It's held in Fountain Square, and there'll be a ceremony around 3:30 in the afternoon that will include, among other things, a reading of this proclamation. But additionally, the whole festival is just a wonderful kind of cultural exhibition of arts and music and food and a variety of social and cultural contributions of the Asian, South Asian, and Pacific Islander American Heritage Month. So I hope to see all of you there. That concludes my announcements and proclamations. The next item on the agenda is the city manager's public announcements.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Clerk Mendoza. We have a brief federal funding update presentation. This is a similar presentation that we did, I believe, back in early March. First up, as you may recall, we started this federal funding tracking 2 days after the November election, and we've been tracking it very closely ever since. We're grateful to have many partners in this process, including Illinois Municipal League, National League of Cities, Northwest Municipal Conference, and several other partners. It remains a very difficult environment to assess. Obviously, there's very fast-moving developments and legal challenges. There's been approximately 120 executive orders, 30 memos, and 30 proclamations that have direct or indirect impact on municipalities. As mentioned, it remains a fluid environment. One element of this is on April 28th, Executive Order 14287, which directs the Attorney General's Office, Homeland Security, to identify and publish lists of sanctuary jurisdictions, notify them of violations, and then there may be potential loss of funding for those jurisdictions. We're expecting that list to be published in the next couple of days. Also, as Director Flax has pointed out, some of the executive orders have also discussed adding certain conditions to CDBG, home, ESG, and pro-housing grant funding. Those conditions are unclear at this point, and unclear whether those eventual conditions are untenable or not. So federal funding related to equity and sustainability face higher risks. Many agencies are continuing to review grant programs, whether or not they're in alignment with the new administration's priorities. And on April 17th, there was an executive order for staff hiring freeze that affected most agencies, which is also contributing to some of the challenges. On a slightly positive note, we had two slides last time, one lower risk slide and a higher risk slide. We have moved some of the items from the higher risk slide over to the lower risk side. For example, some of the public health grants that we assessed as higher risk have moved over to lower risk, and a couple of other items, including the pro-housing grant that we received. Higher risk items still include the Department of Energy grant, 2026 funding for HUD programs, and also things like FEMA grants. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Liza Roberson-Young, who's going to talk about multi-city collaboration.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Bez, Clerk Mendoza, members of City Council. I'm Liza Roberson-Young, Chief Legislative Policy Advisor, and as City Manager Stowe said, I'm going to talk about some of the multi-city advocacy we've been engaged in under the current federal administration. So we are working in tandem with a number of units of local government throughout the country, both directly with city staff in other cities and through organizations like the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the Public Rights Project, to collaborate and sign on to a number of amicus briefs, letters to Congress, to advocate on federal issues that have a local impact, including related to federal funding cuts, immigration issues, healthcare access and rights, and worker protections. I'm going to briefly highlight a couple of cases specifically that I think are really representative of this work. These are all cases in which we filed amicus briefs, which, as you probably know, are so-called friend of the court briefs, filed by someone who isn't a party to a lawsuit, but who has an interest in the outcome. So in these cases, we are joining with cities across the country to explain to the courts what the impact of the issues they're deciding will have on local government. The first case that I would like to talk about is, I'm sure, one that you've all seen covered in the news. It's the litigation challenging the birthright citizenship executive order. The Supreme Court heard oral argument on this case about 2 weeks ago, and the issue that it focused on was kind of a technical issue that nonetheless has a big impact on local government, and that's the question of whether nationwide injunctions, essentially whether a lower federal court can issue a ruling that applies to everyone affected nationwide, or should its ruling be limited to the jurisdiction it's in or to the specific parties to the case. So our brief, led by the Public Rights Project, argued that a nationwide injunction serves the public interest and would especially protect local governments throughout the country. On the merits, it also explained the distinct harm that local governments will face if birthright citizenship is eliminated, including creating substantial administrative confusion and downstream costs for local governments. This brief was joined by more than 150 local governments and local government officials across 107 jurisdictions in 24 states. We are continuing to track this closely, particularly the nationwide injunction issue, which may have an impact on whether Evanstonians are protected in other lawsuits. The second case that I would like to highlight is Massachusetts v. NIH. This is one of the several federal funding cases we've weighed in on, and it's one with particular impact on this community. This is a lawsuit filed by a coalition of state attorneys general challenging an NIH policy that would have the effect of really substantially reducing federal funds to scientific and medical research institutions. This was a brief led by Boston. A coalition of 45 cities, counties, and mayors argued that the NIH cuts would harm local government, particularly cities like Evanston that are home to large research universities. And in this case, the district court has entered a permanent injunction barring enforcement of the NIH policy, and the case is now proceeding on appeal. The third case that I would like to highlight is Noam v. Doe. This is another case before the Supreme Court about immigration issues, and specifically in this case, the Trump administration wants to be able to end what's called humanitarian parole, which is permission to temporarily stay in the United States for humanitarian or public interest reasons, to more than 500,000 non-citizens from Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba. And it wants to be able to do that all at once for all more than 500,000 people affected without giving each person affected a right to an individualized case-by-case determination of their rights. So our brief argued that the signatory cities would be harmed by losing our residents currently eligible for humanitarian parole, and that members of our immigrant communities are integral to the flourishing growth and vitality of our jurisdictions. This is currently before the Supreme Court on an emergency stay application from the Trump administration, so there may be more developments in that coming soon. And then the last case that I wanted to highlight is American Federation of Government Employees v. Office of Personnel Management. This is one of several challenges to the administration's attempts to fire large numbers of federal employees. And our brief argued that local governments have an interest in protecting residents affected by this directive, and that local governments really rely on fully staffed federal agencies to carry out their work. For instance, our local public health departments depend on the CDC, emergency management offices rely on FEMA, and supportive housing agencies interact with HUD all the time. And if those agencies aren't adequately staffed, local government will suffer. And in this case, a lower court ordered that the employees be reinstated, but the Supreme Court granted an emergency stay request from the Trump administration, and that case is continuing to be litigated. So those are just a quick summary of a few of the actions we've taken. We will continue working with our sister cities around the country to monitor and respond to new litigation developments. And as City Manager Stowe mentioned, we are expecting more news on that front this week once the list of sanctuary jurisdictions is published. So that's our work with other cities. In terms of next steps, staff will report to the Finance and Budget Committee and City Council as additional information is received. We will continue to track updates and log communications with federal officials to assist ongoing and future lawsuits. We will continue working with our partnerships to lobby for continued funding. Staff are participating in a National League of Cities webinar next week on the fiscal year 2026 budget and its impact for cities. And we will continue to sign on to additional amicus briefs and engage in continued federal advocacy with our sister communities across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Liza. Any questions? If not, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you very much. The next item is communications from the city clerk.
I have one public comment from Keith Holtzmuller. Is opposed to the underpass for the bike underpass for one of the current projects we have, gave ways in support of the Beck Park expansion. Emma, Daisy concerned about the design of the Gray Dog Park, and someone by the name Robs thanking the city for upkeeping greenways and for keeping greenways safe. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. By the way, would you please add Councilmember Burns to the roll? We now move ahead to public comment. This evening there are, I believe, 18 people signed up for public comment, so each will be given 2.5 minutes. We begin, as always, by those who signed up in person to speak in person, starting with Ken Cherry, who will be followed by Steve Test, and then Calvin Lynn.
Good evening. Honorable Mayor, esteemed City Manager, Madam Clerk, council members. My name is Pastor Ken Cherry, and I'm here to address you on behalf of resident Juanita Ross, who is also known as Doll by those that love her. She's a member of the Christ Temple Church, and a few weeks ago, her family was involved in a non-fatal shooting at her home. As alarming as this sounds, the police handled the matter. The shooter is in custody, and the community is safe. However, Sister Doll is being constantly harassed. She is the victim of unfounded police calls, unsubstantiated calls to parking enforcement, and even untrue calls to real estate companies saying she is seeking to sell her home. This is unfair and not an accurate portrayal of what Evanston is. This is a homeowner who has been in this home for decades, has contributed to the community, has raised generations of children, grandchildren, and now because of a mental health issue is being bullied and harassed. We will not tolerate this bullying and this harassment, and we ask that this council instruct the police department and parking enforcement to check those involved. Every time the police is sent to a home to check something that is unfounded, resources are being taken away from what is necessary. Every time they're called to check her license plates to make sure that the tags are valid, they should be somewhere taking care of someone in need. I warn you, Evanston, that if we allow this African-American senior citizen who has purchased her home, who is a law-abiding citizen, to be bullied like this, and we accept this as normal, it will become something that spreads throughout our community. I encourage you, City Council, to use our resources to stand against such bullying and harassment. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Steve Test, who will be followed by Calvin Lynn, and then Derica Ross.
Steve Test, 1135 Hinman Avenue. I wanted to remind you all of the letter that a number of us sent to you requesting opportunity and time to provide testimony to the council once you receive the draft that is eventually produced from the Land Use Commission. I've asked Ms. Flax when we might expect to see that. I haven't heard back yet, but I would like to ask you to put on your agenda for your next council meeting an item to discuss and come up with a procedure that would allow the citizens of Evanston to be able, once you have the LUC draft of the comprehensive plan, opportunity to talk to you about many issues that many of us think were inadequately covered in the comprehensive plan. There's major issues that need discussion. Gentrification, the deteriorating condition of existing housing stock in Evanston, a much deeper discussion of affordable housing, and things like effects of income stagnation and inequality on the affordability equation, not just the cost of housing, but the ability of people to pay for it. What can the city do to address those issues also? The fact that the Land Use Commission was fairly confused about what the edits were that they had agreed to, and there was disagreement about what they had agreed to, I think underlines the importance of spending some time with the citizens, talking to you about what is in the comprehensive plan. And I hope that we get to see the comprehensive plan with all the drawings and diagrams and charts and illustrations, because I think it's important to see all of that. So I'm asking you now to add to, however you go about doing it, adding this to the agenda for the next city council meeting so that we can talk about a process to allow a robust discussion with this, from the citizens to the city council on the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Calvin Lynn, who will be followed by Derica Ross, and then Lenika Ross.
Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon. That's probably Greg Reprezenski, my attorney, but I'm here to represent the Third Ward and my neighbors. I'm a property owner at 424 South Boulevard, adjacent to the city parking lot, one that's supposed to be under development or developed by Payroll Development, which now in the 11th hour we found that they're trying to make it another developer purchase. And my concerns is that we have not been transparent, or the city hasn't been transparent with giving us the information that we need to move forward with this development. And my concerns is I've been a property owner there since 1995, and they're taking away my light space, my green space, to build a 60-unit development. And there's been certain promises that they were going to do some property altercation with the zoning, but I think that we need to postpone this development and invite other people to come to the table, like community partners for affordable housing, other developers that are within the city, not outside the state, and give us some sort of meetings to come together with what the development is going to be like and what the promises are already made if they're going to keep them with a new developer. So my concerns are that we need to postpone this before anything else and have some transparency. That's my concerns. So if we could ask the agenda to be postponed to another date, which you already agreed on, I think, for the next council meeting. That's my concern.
Mr. Chairman.
Are you,
My council.
just go ahead quickly, yes?
Mr. Chairman, my name's Greg Rupczynski. I'm attorney for Calvin Lynn. And likewise, I want to echo his comments that there was no notice given that this was going to be put on the agenda. His current alderperson is out of town, and this has been going on for some time now. And we asked for continuance.
Excuse me, this is public comment. So thank you very much. We're going to continue with public comment. The next speaker is Derica Ross, who will be followed by Lenika Ross and then Taylor Ross.
We're just gonna all come together. We're just gonna all come together, yeah. Okay, so we are the grandchildren of Juanita Ross. We are the grandchildren of Juanita Ross. I'm Derica Ross, this is Lenika, and this is Taylor. And we're coming here, we're really reiterating what our pastor has already stated. We just feel like there's a lot of indirect bullying. For many years, we've lived there. We've been able to wash cars, but recently someone called the police on my little cousin for washing his car outside, and it's like, this is something that's been done for decades, but they said he was disturbing the peace, and it's just him outside washing a car. When we come over now, when her grandchildren visit her now, it's too many of us coming over. Like, she can't have company. This lady owns her home.
She's probably the only person that's home is paid off in this area, which I don't know for sure, but I know that her home is paid off. And for her to have to limit the company in which she keeps because she's trying to pacify her neighbors is unfair. No one's saying anything about the fact that her neighbor that's right on the corner of Greenwood and Fowler put up a fence in his front yard, but he failed to put that fence up on the complete part of his property. He left a tree shrub in her yard that now is messing up her, home. But he complains so much about everything going on, but she's not complaining about this, which she now has to have removed. She's not complaining about the person who behind her has his camera pointed directly into her yard, and it's a complaint that what's being in her yard. It's her yard. If she wanted to plant a beanstalk, it's her yard. Why does she have to change the way that she's living at 86 when the incident that happened was an isolated domestic incident? We don't know what's going on in the homes of anyone else because their incident didn't spill out into the street. This happened to spill out into the street. We took accountability. The offender is now gone. So why does she now have to live in the confines of her home? She can't walk outside without someone calling the police that someone is disturbing them. She's 86 years old today. What is she disturbing by coming outside of her house or having her grandchildren? We can't even celebrate her birthday the way we want to today because we're afraid they're gonna call the police because there's too many cars there. She can't park her cars because she has 5 vehicles. They're hers. No one owns that property but the city. So they can't keep telling her she has to move her car. They're calling the police, having her tags checked to make sure that they're valid because they're parked on her street. There's a school bus parked on my block who sits in front of my house every day. I can't call and say, hey, someone needs to move the school bus because I don't own that parking space. It's not fair. She's 86 and she's being bullied and harassed on a daily basis since this incident. There's shootings all over the city all the time. Everyone's uncomfortable when it happens, but this was a domestic incident. The offender's gone, so leave this lady alone.
Yeah.
Y'all said it better than I could.
Okay. So that's it.
That's pretty much
We
it.
just want my grandma to be able to live in peace. I mean, she doesn't deserve the unnecessary stress. Yeah.
At this point, we're like, are they trying to kill her? Like, what's going on? Like, at this point, it's like, stop.
The next speaker is Ray Friedman.
Good evening, everyone. It's a tough act to follow. So I wanted to say congratulations to all the re-elected officials and all the newly elected officials. While I was writing my public comment, an email popped up. The email says, "I get it, Ray. People are giving up on government, and truthfully, I can see why. We live in a time of severe problems that aren't being solved, from the economy that only works for the fortunate few and increasingly uncertain geopolitical situation to a climate crisis barreling at us like a freight train. Donald Trump is systematically making each of these issues worse, and too often it feels like Democrats don't know what to do about it. Meanwhile, we see elections increasingly controlled by big money, politicians more focused on today's headlines than tomorrow's solutions, and Donald Trump and MAGA extremists pushing us forward, something that doesn't feel like democracy. Thank you, Mayor Biss, for writing the first part of my public comment. Now, to the agenda. Yes, people are getting very cynical and extremely fed up with the politics here in our own backyard. Talking repeatedly about affordable housing, great idea. Now let's look around at our new city hall that cost us $2.5 million per year for 15 years. That's only a bit more than $200,000 a month. Does that sound affordable to you? And you approved it after you were found guilty of an Open Meetings Act violation. Sorry, but I don't recall the residents having a voice or a choice on the new city hall. Why is that? Cynical, you say? Disgusted? You betcha. And why not listen and understand and then act on the wishes of your residents, like reappointing George Halleck to the LUC board? He is the best qualified for that position, and he's working for free. Let's take a look at the agenda for tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Can I finish?
No. Everyone gets the same amount of time. Thank you very much.
Okay.
This concludes the list of people who signed up in person. We now move to those who signed up online to speak in person, beginning with Meg Welch, who will be followed by Robert Keating, and then Linda Damashek.
I actually signed up for in person. Meg Welch, 4th Ward. I appreciate what the city is doing as a federal employee. And I appreciate the amicus briefs, the AFSCME versus OPM. As a former AFSCME union representative before I went into management, I appreciate the efforts. And I also, the presentation on what we can anticipate with the federal funding cuts is related to my comment, because there's 2 things on the agenda that I think are representing a pattern, and that is what are we doing to not waste money and make a plan for financing affordable housing. So I'm concerned, for example, the Main Street property. I would love to see the city purchase that and turn it into a limited equity land trust. But if we do that, if we purchase this property, we have $200,000 in change left over in the TIF. And we're getting consultants that cost the $248,000 for the property on Jackson. And I'm not seeing, everyone is very committed to affordable housing. We need to take a very sober look, and I'm not hearing it. The tax cuts are the tax credits that finance the federal funding for affordable housing. They're being cut. If we want affordable housing, just upzoning and increasing the supply, theoretically, and it's controversial, more controversial than some sources would have you believe, but it takes years for that to result in lower rents. So we're going to have to get serious about how we're going to finance affordable housing if that's what we want. Is that what we want? Because I'm not seeing a plan. I'm seeing spending money on consultants, and I'm seeing buying properties. I'm not convinced. I don't know. Why does the city need to purchase the property on Main Street? It's in a it's on a street that's could be a great transit-oriented development. Why does the city need to purchase it? Have all the options been exhausted? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Robert Keating, who will be followed by Linda Damashek, and then Sheila Sullivan.
On behalf of Evanston Transit Alliance, I want to express support for the Beck Park expansion and for Sheridan Road shoreline improvements, including a road diet. Both projects include multi-use pathways to fill critical missing pieces in our transportation network for those trying to travel outside of their cars, including families and children going to parks or nearby schools. These are generational opportunities to enhance underutilized spaces, and the lakefront and channel are our greatest natural assets and worthy of investment. We also strongly encourage the city to prioritize the remaining future phases of Beck Park, including the pedestrian and bike underpass below Emerson, a very busy and difficult street to cross. The intersections along the channel are very dangerous and have led to many injuries for pedestrians and those on bike, which hamper access to the parks and amenities we are trying to provide our community. Also, as a resident nearby 801 Main, I was coming to speak in support of a mixed-use development with affordable housing. This location has great access to jobs and local amenities via public transportation and would continue the enhancement of the main Dempster Mile. It's not often the city can get site control in such a prime spot for affordable housing, so I urge that this plan will return and be revisited. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Linda Damashek, who will be followed by Sheila Sullivan.
Good evening, Linda Damashek. I urge the City Council to gather additional citizen input on the comprehensive plan for 60 days and revise it before you consider voting on it. This is needed because the Land Use Commission conducted an unnecessarily rushed process for something as consequential as a once in every 20-year plan that affects every resident in Evanston. And I believe this rush is due to political timing considerations of other upcoming elections. In addition, the Land Use Commission membership has now been politicized throughout the current appointment process. Previously, a body with members with the proper technical expertise, the Commission now has numerous members without the appropriate technical expertise skill sets for the 4-year duties of project-specific zoning and land use decisions. But they do have partisan policy inclinations that have informed their votes on the comprehensive plan. There are many factual and policy considerations to discuss in more depth with all Evanston residents. But my immediate concern is to convey to you, City Council members, what a partisan document this is, and a particular example on page 10 and 11 that exhibits an inaccurate and partisan sentence to revise. Many attendees, the sentence is, many attendees voiced support for expanding and diversifying housing options to accommodate a wide range of housing needs. It should be clarified by saying, by blanket upzoning of all residential areas. Then, in an attempt to be acknowledging of a different point of view, it says only that many others spoke out against it. Since citizens brought forward many well-reasoned arguments, they should be acknowledged by changing the sentence to add the clarification, and many others expressed concerns regarding gentrification of lower-income areas and lower-priced neighborhoods, and resident displacement as an unintended consequence of these policy proposals, as well as retaining single-family home neighborhoods. I am very concerned with the large number of points in this plan that are too vague and poorly defined, that point to very large hidden policy changes that the community should be given the opportunity to discuss chapter by chapter for meaningful clarification and useful input. The future of the entire community will be affected, and council members have a responsibility to thoroughly review the impact of this document and revise as appropriate. Thank you
very much. The next speaker is Sheila Sullivan.
Good evening. I live in the 3rd Ward, and I'm here to speak about Envision Evanston 2045. The plan prescribes major changes to the quality of life in Evanston. While it purports to increase affordability, affordable housing professionals have testified that this will not be the outcome. The character of our neighborhoods in the city would ultimately be sacrificed to a seemingly unattainable goal as currently set forth in EE 45. The economy of scale to achieve affordability would increase density and bring on a whole other host of cost and infrastructural problems. The EE 45 draft should be revised after the last Wednesday's Land Use Commission meeting, a commission whose membership has been in flux during this EE 45 process. Several newer, lesser qualified individuals now sit on the commission. I urge the council to not vote on this plan until the community has had at least 60 days to review the current or revised draft, however it comes out, as many important comments have not been incorporated into the draft now, but it doesn't reflect our needs or values, and it is the people of Evanston's plan. So I urge you to slow it down and give us the time to make it work for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes the in-person portion of the evening's public comment. We now move to the online comments, beginning with David Sutherland, who will be followed by Tricia Connolly, and then Jeremy Esparza. It looks like David Sutherland is not in the Zoom at this time, so we'll move ahead with Tricia Connolly, who will be followed by Jeremy Esparza, and then Kira Kelly.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Biss. I wanted to first acknowledge that I was at the APW meeting earlier this evening, and I want to thank the members for voting down A6. I think that was a really important thing to do in light of community concerns about how we spend our money to get things done. I'm here to speak about A11, the changes to the ownership concerning Lot 1. I really strongly urge all of you to do some homework concerning this project. A proposal where Housing Authority of Cook County is taking this over completely is concerning for many reasons. One of which is the uncertainty of their financial stability, and another is the problems they've had managing their buildings, even here in Evanston. I've worked with community groups in a couple of buildings here in Evanston, and the management situation is not ideal. Residents, tenants are organizing to make it better, but there is a lot of work to be done. And I bring this up because most recently in January, HACC had problems in Niles with they had a federal fair housing complaint against them. So I think you really need to put some weight on that and think about how going forward that can be addressed. And additionally, there's union contracts that I believe have not been settled yet with their clerical and maintenance workers. We say we care about the worker. That's something that should be looked at. And in addition to that, there were some audits that they had that were supposed to be available as of February of this year, as said on their website, and they still do not exist. There is no way to access them. So I would really just encourage all of you to look deeper into this before you decide what's going forward with this change. And frankly, you had other bidders on this, and maybe somebody like Reba could connect with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Jeremy Esparza, who will be followed by Kira Kelly and then Michelle Klebeck.
Good evening, City Council, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Jeremy Esparza, and I'm a business agent with Labor Local 1, a union representing over 1,700 skilled workers, many of whom are residents of Evanston. I'm here tonight to urge you to pass the ordinance of 23-0-25, commonly known as a responsible bidder ordinance. This ordinance has been thoroughly debated in Alderman Burns' MWEBE committee over the past year, and the version before you today reflects thoughtful compromise and the real needs that we feel Evanston could benefit from. This ordinance is a common sense policy. It ensures construction projects that are public construction projects go to qualified proven contractors who invest in workforce development, safety, and fair labor standards. not about jobs. It's about protecting taxpayer money and raising the bar for the work done in the city. However, I do want to raise a concern about one part of the ordinance, the exemption process for Evanston businesses that are not affiliated with the Department of Labor Registered Apprenticeship Program. The current language requires these businesses to submit proof of 1,800 hours of relevant work experience per employee. That's an enormous burden, not just on the businesses, but on city staff who will be tasked with verifying that documentation. The ordinance already includes a provision for City Council to waive any provision of the requirement, including the apprenticeship rule for local businesses. That mechanism is already in place and it should be trusted. Adding another layer of red tape creates confusion and only weakens the ordinance impact. To close, I know it may sound a little cheesy, but this ordinance is truly a taxpayer protection plan. It assures that Evanston receives the highest quality work and the greatest value for its public dollars. Thanks for your consideration and collaboration on this ordinance.
Thank you very much. The last two speakers are Kira Kelly and Michelle Klebeck, who I believe are not present in the Zoom as well. So that concludes public comment for the evening. We now move on to the consent agenda. It's my understanding that items A6 and A12 both failed to make it out of committee this evening, so they're certainly removed from the consent agenda. Are there other items that members would like to remove from the consent agenda?
A2, please, Mr. Mayor.
A2.
A1.
A1.
A11.
A11.
A4.
A4. So at this time, we have A1, A2, A4, A6, A11, and A12. Is there anything else?
HS2.
HS2. So last call, what we have at this time is A1, A2, A4, A6, A11, A12, and HS2. I would entertain a motion in that case.
I'll move the consent agenda minus items A1, A2, A4, A11, and HS2.
And A6 and A12.
And, oh, I'm sorry. Well, no, A6 and A12 were, oh, right.
They're on the consent
minus
agenda,
A6 and A12, I'm sorry. Pardon me. And also minus A6 and A12.
Councilmember Kelly moves adoption of the whole consent agenda with the following exceptions: A1, A2, A4, A6, A11, A12, and HS2. Councilmember Harris seconds. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Harris? Aye. Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries, and the consent agenda with the 7 exemptions previously named is adopted. Councilmember Sufferton, do you have a motion on item A1?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move item A1, approval of the City of Evanston payroll bills list and credit card activity.
Second.
Councilmember Sufferton moves approval of the City of Evanston payroll bills list and credit card activity. Councilmember Newsom seconds. Councilmember Burns.
I think it's an abstention, another recusal, but my wife applied for and received a Love Your Block grant, and so because of that, I didn't score, vote on, or weigh in on any of those proposals. I asked Tashik to let me know when it was coming up on the bills list, and I think it's today. So abstaining, recusing myself.
Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Oh, Councilmember Burns?
Recuse.
Councilmember Sufferton?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
With 7 voting in favor, none voting against, and 1 recusal, the motion carries and the activity is approved. Would someone other than Councilmember Sufferton care to make a motion on item A2?
I move for the approval of BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity.
Second.
Councilmember Harris moves approval of BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity. Councilmember Newsom seconds. Seeing no discussion, would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Harris. Aye. Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton.
I abstain.
Councilmember Davis. Aye. Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
With 7 voting in favor, none voting against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries and the activity is approved. Now on item A4, Councilmember Sufferton.
I move approval of item A4, which is the contract with John Keno and Company Incorporated for the Beck Park Expansion Phase 1 project.
Second.
Councilmember Sufferton moves approval of the contract just named. Councilmember Harris seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. So we split this 2-2 at APW, and there was a lot of concern about the cost overall for this project. And I just can't help to think that this could potentially go forward differently with the less expensive, the park shelter, as well as having some of it allocated towards in-house, some like rebuilding the path, extending the path. It seems very expensive, and we really don't know what the scope of cost is. This is only phase 1. We don't have a projection as to what phase 2 or what the phase 3 will entail. So I guess I'm concerned. I want to support this, absolutely. I know the history of this area, so I do want to support it, but I am concerned that we're proceeding with a higher cost than we would necessarily have to. So.
Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Briefly recapping commentary from APW committee, I am also concerned about the cost of the shelter, but rather than risk losing $300,000 worth of state grant money, I think the best option is to move forward at this point and direct staff to do whatever they can to take some cost out of this after we approve the contract. So staff has, I assume, heard that message and will do so without being further directed.
Yes, City Council, my name is Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. So yes, I did hear that, and if the council is awarded, we will then work with the consultant as well as the contractor to determine potentially changing some of the elements of the pavilion.
Thank you.
Councilmember Burns.
Voting on phase 1 today doesn't tie us to phase 2 at all, right? Like there's nothing that will start in phase 1 that then will require us to approve something in phase 2. We would have time to evaluate phase 2 on its own.
Yes, so as you know, during the public engagement, it became clear that the needs for the park were pretty expansive, and so in order to control the scope and the cost sum, we divided it into phases. And so this first phase has been designed and gone out to bid. We have not started design work on the second phase, which includes both a water feature for children to utilize, as well as some additional path work and overlook work for the canal. And then phase 3 actually includes looking at how to cross the channel, as well as it does include some additional pathway work and a new pathway right closer to ground water level of the channel to provide access to that. That particular, so phase 2 is budgeted or estimated at $1 million right now for construction. Phase 3 is estimated considerably more at $2.8 million, but that is more like a transportation project where we would probably be eligible for more state or federal grants, and we would treat it that way.
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear that there's nothing about approving phase 1. There's nothing about phase 1 that relies on phase 2. So we're not committing ourselves by supporting phase 1 today. We're not committing ourselves to doing anything in phase 2. To Councilmember Nusma's point, I think probably the best idea I heard is to try to value engineer the pavilion that has already been designed. Also want to say that I think Councilmember Davis's point was a good one in saying that if we do want to try to control costs, it's probably time better spent to do that during the community engagement process as opposed to trying to remove things at such a late stage in the process, especially after we've already had 6 meetings and and designed everything and put that back in front of the community. And, they're excited about moving this thing forward, just to have things kind of ripped out at the absolute last moment when the project is being voted on up here. So I take that. I would support that, figuring out how to do that. Yep.
At this time, no one is asking to speak for a first time, so we go back to Councilmember Kelly with 4 minutes left.
Thank you. So I do want to point out that the only part that we can value engineer at this point is just the pavilion, the shelter, which is really a small fraction. It's a $3.6 million contract we're looking at, and that's $520,000. So, I mean, my concern is there are like the water park portion, and there are some pieces of the overall park plan that it seems to me if we had looked to only outsource what we absolutely couldn't do in-house over time, I wonder if we couldn't have, for the same cost, have included, the water splash park area as well as some of the other components. But I am concerned that much of this work being done could be done in-house, not all of it, but some of it, and that we could have allocated just this, large expense to that, which we couldn't do under any circumstances. So again, I'm concerned about, I would like to have an idea of what would it look like, what would our staffing have to look like to carry out, say, the expansion of the path, the improvement of the path, along with, like, what do we need to increase our staffing? I just think we are outsourcing so much that could be done in-house, and we have so many other park projects, so I ask that we look at that.
Yes, currently we don't have the staffing to take this on, but we can look at that. However, to be clear, it's not just the staffing. It's buying major pieces of new equipment, multiple trucks, as well as the materials that the contractor also has to purchase in order to do the installation. So it really isn't just a question of hiring more staff.
But like the specialty landscaping, I mean, is there some type of landscaping involved? I mean, I understand we'd have to purchase that too. If there's equipment that would have to be purchased, then we might have to do that. But in terms of, what is the specialized landscaping?
I'm not sure what you were referring to.
Well, that was a response to one of my questions was about in-house.
I see.
And it was said, well, we have a lot of, the specialty landscaping that our staff.
It's not necessarily, and perhaps that was misstated, it's not necessarily that there's any one item, but that there is additional equipment that would be needed. Our staff is not currently trained on that equipment. It's not even in their job descriptions, to my knowledge. And I don't even know the realm of things because I'm not a contractor, but we have looked at this in the past for other things. For example, for replacing lead service lines, because we had so much work to do. With that, we did bring in create crews, but the analysis included quite a lot of training and equipment as well as being able to hire the staff. And that's for something that doesn't require major earth moving usually. So.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rogers.
Quick question for you. This is phase one. There's a phase two, phase three. What's the timing roughly for those two phases? Is this sequential years? Is there a gap in between?
There most likely would need to be a gap in between because we have not started design on phase two yet. So we would probably budget design for phase two for 2026 and construction in 2027 and then put that to the council as a recommendation. And then similarly, for seeking federal grants, we can begin the work on the phase three crossing at Emerson, but those projects typically take 5 years to develop by the time you create the initial studies, apply for grants, get grants, then implement the projects.
At this time, no one is requesting to speak for the first time, so we go back to Councilmember Nusma for a second crack with 4 minutes and 20 seconds left.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to pick up on Councilmember Kelly's suggestion that we try to do more of this work in-house. With statement I partially agree with. I think that discussion is better had during our budget discussion, not part of this project. I'm looking forward to that discussion at the appropriate time. I think it does make sense to bring design work in-house, and in fact, we have staffed up by adding some additional personnel to do design work in-house, so I'm on board, continuing to go in that direction. But for the contracting work itself, my gut reaction is it totally makes sense to subcontract that, because we would have to hire folks to do a project that, would take place only during the summer construction season, and then what would we do with these folks for the cold winter months? So I think for some things it makes sense to do in a house, like design. Construction totally makes sense to outsource, but that's a discussion we can have during budget.
Still no one is requesting to speak for a first time, so we go back to Councilmember Burns with 3.5 minutes left.
Just want to comment. I know the last budget season I made a motion that was successful to remove, I think it was $150,000 of design funding that we're doing in-house now. And so I guess my point is that we are making progress on this, the idea that there's no discretion on deciding what we do in-house versus, what we contract out for is just not accurate. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Harris? Aye. Councilmember Newsma? Aye. Councilmember Burns? Aye. Councilmember Sufferton?
No.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
No.
With 6 voting in favor and 2 voting against, the motion carries and the contract is approved. Now on item A11, Councilmember Sufferton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move item A11, Resolution 53R25, seeking City Council support of the proposed changes to the ownership of the 60-unit affordable housing development to be constructed at 504 South Boulevard.
Oh, second.
Second.
Councilmember Sufferton moves approval of Resolution 53-R-25. Councilmember Hadakaris seconds. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, I pulled this off because I remember when we voted on this and there was some controversy around another response to the bid from, I think it was Joint REBA and SEPA also responded. And I know there's a lot of community feeling that they were hoping we'd go with local community groups to for this property. And so I guess I'm wondering at this point, it feels like, is there, I guess, I feel like there should be more community discussion because it does, the management of the property and who's going to own it does matter. And it seems to me that this should be, well, I guess I have a couple of questions. I know there's, the LIHTC, the credits are involved, and NEF, I believe, is the syndicator, right, that manages the LIHTC credits. And I don't know if, Sarah, if you could answer, are these, do you know what the deadline are or when these credits close?
Good evening, City Council members. Sarah Flax, Community Development Director. Payroll has already secured tax credits, and they were secured probably almost 2 years ago. So they're probably even on an extension. One of the issues with this project, it has been held up because of a tenant who would not leave the property even when they were supposed to from the housing authority's property. So the tax credits have been awarded. The drawings, everything, I mean, this project is basically ready to break ground other than, literally signing, finalizing everything and getting going. So this is not a case where somebody else can come in. There's been a huge, and take over the project. There's been an incredible investment on the part of the organizations already involved. And I would not recommend trying to change the project to some other developer.
But we would be changing ownership, correct?
Yes, but you need to understand the ownership that's being talked about is every time you use low-income housing tax credits, there is an LLC, and that is because there is the general partner, which has 1% ownership technically, and the equity partners, which in this this is the funder. So this is the organization that's handling the investors who are providing the equity for the development of this. And what happens is the general partner, whoever the general partner is, then becomes the owner of the building permanently after the tax credits are all paid off. So it's not really a change in ownership beyond Payroll stepping out as the general partner, and the Housing Authority of Cook County, which was, before it was split, the general partnership was split between Payroll and the Housing Authority of Cook County. Now it would be the Housing Authority of Cook County exclusively. Payroll, due to a lot of changes during their whole business model, is really moving toward a developer function only, and they are not continuing to be the general partners in those. And this is also a standard. This can happen in tax credit developments. The developer doesn't always become that 1% general partner. So I hope that answers the question.
A little bit it does. So I guess since we did have these local, respected, great track record community groups that also bid, couldn't, I understand that they've already secured the tax credits. How many extensions did they get? Several?
I don't know exactly how long, but I mean, this is normally when you have, they got their tax credit allocation, I think it was in 2022, maybe it was in 2023, but they have a certain period of time to actually break ground. So
what is that? And so what's the deadline on that?
I don't know, but we do have Johanna Casanova, and I'm sure she can give us that information.
My follow-up question, where I'm getting, is I'm wondering if this could be held so that so that HAC could consider a partnership with, like SEPA, so that we have one of those local organizations that did bid to consider a partnership. I think this can be done as an owner, and I think that would make the community, SEPA and REBA, I don't know what, but I know I have heard from residents, and I remember that very well when they did respond to the bid, and how much folks were very much interested in having these local entities involved. I would just ask to see if the Housing Authority would consider a partnership.
Well, we have a representative of the Housing Authority online as well, and I will allow them to answer that. I believe. If Johanna is...
And I just want to, this isn't something that, I mean, obviously this would take conversations that wouldn't be decided tonight, but it would be held over to engage in those discussions.
Well, I just would like to see if they... Pardon? Johanna will be here in 2 minutes? Okay.
While we're waiting, I just want to share with the council, I had an email this morning from Councilmember Isles who planned his family's Memorial Day related vacation around the fact that we had a council meeting last night. So let that be a lesson to all of us about clarity of broadcasting our calendars. So he flew out of town this morning, but he just wanted on this topic, because this is in the third ward, he wanted to share his thoughts. He said, I'm on a family vacation, unable to attend tonight's council meeting. I believe A11 to be a routine matter and likely to pass on the consent agenda, but in case there is a debate, I would like to advocate for no further delay on the Lot 1 project. Adding 60 housing units for households earning between 30 and 80% of the area median income will be a great benefit to the third ward and the city of Evanston. HAC ownership will keep these units affordable in perpetuity. Sincerely, Sean. So I just didn't want to hold on to that information for just myself. Is the person from HAC getting online? Okay. If only Sean wrote longer emails, I could have stalled for long enough. He's very efficient.
While we're waiting, may I make a comment? Yeah. So I haven't had a chance to talk to Sean because he was on vacation, so I didn't, as I was reading this over and having conversations, I haven't spoken with him, and I feel like it would be, I mean, this is something that just has come up over the weekend, and it does seem in response to a lot of the local community concerns that maybe he would also consider that to encourage a partnership between the Housing Authority and, say, SEPA and or REBA. So that was amenable to all parties.
I think we have a representative from HAC in the Zoom now.
Hello, this is Joanna Casanova. I'm actually a representative with Payroll Developers.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
I just joined, so could you repeat the
Joanna,
question?
the question is, one of the questions is, would it be a possibility for, which you can't answer this one, for the HAC to take a different partner, but one of the questions that you can answer is, when do the tax credits expire? When do you have to break ground for your tax credits?
We actually have received an allocation for 2024, and we swap it for 2025, so we have to start construction in 2025.
By the end of 2025.
That normally means they have to have 10% of their tax credit used by the end of this year, is what I believe that means. Is that correct, Johanna?
That is correct.
Okay. But I mean, so that's helpful to know. And again, also don't want to delay, but to me, the more important question here is a joint partnership in ownership with either SEPA and REBA or SEPA-REBA. I know they, with another organization to enter into a partnership, if that would be something that could be considered. But I don't know, would that be for us to say we'd like to do? I mean, I don't know if this is a question that someone can just tell us whether they're interested.
Well, there are
or
different
not.
factors. It's not like we can always make those decisions. I mean, the tax credit award was to Payroll and in this partnership with the Housing Authority. And I believe Ida is aware of the request to change the partnership. Is that correct, Johanna?
Yeah, and I apologize. I did join a little late. We have been working on the project since the RFP for 4 years, and we did apply to the tax credit with a partnership with Pearl as a main guarantor and limited member in the ownership and HAC. So the revision we have today is we wouldn't be part of the ownership. However, we are still a main team member, which we're part of the application, and we will still be the guarantor and developer with HAC through construction completion. And I think that's an essential component of the development. And that's also a requirement to other stakeholders, such as construction lenders, main financing, and other financing venues. So, I mean, I know that it could be a possibility, but I do feel that the development team was well vetted, and it's still, Pearl has a big component on the project.
Sure. And I'm not regarding discussing Pearl. I understand from everything I read that Pearl will continue and finish the development and construction, and then the ownership would go over to HAC. And that's where I'm asking if we could direct staff to engage with HAC to see if there's any room for a partnership with those who had bid on it previously.
We are trying to get Danita Childers, who's the Housing Authority Executive Director. She's having trouble with their technology. We're going to try to just get her in on the phone.
No, I think she's in now.
Oh, is she? Okay.
Ms. Childers, can you unmute?
Hello, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
So my question is, would the Housing Authority, as we're deliberating this evening about changing this so that the ownership at once developed with Pearl, afterwards as it transfers over to the Housing Authority rather than transfer it over entirely to the Housing Authority, because there were other local, well-respected and loved organizations that bid on this, if the Housing Authority could consider a partnership with, say, Community Partners for Affordable Housing as owners.
Just Ms. Childers, let me cut you off for 1 second. I think the Law Department wants to weigh in first, and then we'll go to you immediately afterwards.
Thank you, Mayor Biss, members of City Council, Alex Ruggie, Corporation Council. So I do know that the law department we're ready to close on the sale of the city property. We also got approval of the sale via ordinance. It was published in the newspaper. So I think in order to change it at this time, we would have to go through the entire process all over again. So I just want to let you know. And we are under contract. We've been through attorney review. We've done all of everything there. So it would just be more complicated than changing it right now.
Ms. Childers.
Yes, I would agree with what the attorney just stated. At this point, we would basically have to start over. So we're in the process of closing calls with the investors and IDA and all the partners. Everyone is in agreement to move forward with the new ownership structure. But if we were to change that at this point, I believe we would have to start all over again.
So my only concern is that I do think this was significant during the debates and deliberation about this, about the owner, and we heard a lot from Paul Zalmazak about Pearl, and I am concerned that we're doing this very quickly. I don't think it should be done necessarily in one meeting. I think there should be some discussion about the future ownership. Thank you.
Councilmember Burns.
Was the ownership structure before one where Hack was a co-owner? I'll let Director Flax answer that on the microphone.
The Hack and Payroll were going to be the co-general partners, not the equity partners. So that's the 1% that actually manages the building and everything. The equity partnership would be the same as it is now.
So let me understand. So they would be. So what role would Hack have? What role did Hack have in what was previously proposed or initially proposed? What we approved already?
Hack and the Payroll would have been co-managers of the property. Okay. So the ownership with these tax credit deals, you always have the 1% general partner ownership and then the 99%, which is the tax credit investors.
And that was Pearl before the 99?
No. That's the equity investor.
Oh, that's still, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's confusing.
Yeah, I think for that reason alone, it seems like that's what I recall, that Hack was already very much so a part of this deal. One of the owners or managers, it sounds like, in that deal. It feels like they're more local to Evanston than a Pearl is. And so they have buildings and facilities in Evanston already. I think the fact that we were able to get the executive director on the late night call in this way shows that they're local, they're really committed to Evanston, and I think it makes sense to, just for the sake of not delaying this any further, that we support this, what's being asked of us. Thank you.
Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm ready to move forward with this as well. This has been a long time coming. It's been kind of on hold for a while some site-specific issues were worked out. This is an exciting project, 60 units of affordable housing, of varying size units. We need housing in this community yesterday, and to further delay this in pursuit of some kind of theoretical ownership change just doesn't make sense. So let's move forward for the reasons Councilmember Isles suggested, to which I will add, this is also going to be an all-electric building in full compliance with our CARP agenda. So I'm excited about it. I'm ready to approve it.
Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Harris? Aye. Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember Hedakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
Aye.
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries and Resolution 53-R-25 is passed. Now on item HS2, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move item HS2, Ordinance 42025, opting the Evanston School Districts out of the Cook County Paid Leave Ordinance.
Second.
Councilmember Nusman moves introduction of Ordinance 42-0-25. Councilmember Harris seconds. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you so much. We have someone on the line from ETHS who I think could do a really good job of explaining this. Scott Bramley, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Harris. Yes, so I'm here representing both District 65 and District 202, Evanston Township's public schools in the municipality. The ordinance tonight would allow both school districts to be exempted from the Cook County paid leave ordinance, which essentially provided paid leave for all workers in Cook County. School districts were previously exempted. There was a temporary exemption for that expired in January of 2025, January 1st, 2025. However, the intention of that paid ordinance was to provide paid leave for workers that did not have that. All employees in Evanston Township High School are receiving paid benefits beyond what the paid leave ordinance provides. And so what was originally exempted for school districts, the state legislature decided to leave to municipalities. And since we're a home rule municipality, you have the ability to exempt our districts from the ordinance. Again, no employees would lose any benefits if you adopt this ordinance. Every employee in our district is under a collective bargaining agreement that provides beyond what the paid leave ordinance provides, as well as those who are not under a collective bargaining agreement also receive paid leave well beyond what the paid leave ordinance provides in Cook County. So for those reasons, we are asking that the municipality follow several other municipalities in Cook County in exempting our school districts from this ordinance.
I actually just want to ask a clarifying question, Mr. Bramley. As we sometimes forget, these school districts are not contained entirely in Evanston. Has the village of Skokie already taken this same action?
I can't speak for the village of Skokie. I know that all the home rule municipalities were asked to do so because this was under consideration at the state level, and at that level they decided to bring it back to the local municipalities. And so I can't speak for Skokie specifically because our school district for District 65 it's a little bit different, but for District 202 our building is in Evanston. And although we have students who attend the high school who live in Skokie, our employees are all within Evanston. So for District 202, the ordinance that you would approve would apply for all of our employees in our district. For District 65, I do know they have some sites that are in the village of Skokie, and so I can't speak for them. I'm sorry, Mayor Biss.
Thank you. Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really quick question for my benefit and anyone else who might be asking themselves the same thing. If all the school district employees are already getting benefits which exceed that which the Cook County ordinance requires, then what's the big deal? Why would you need to be exempted from the Cook County ordinance?
Yes, that's a great question. And so the employees that are not currently covered would be temporary employees like substitute teachers, employees who could work games, officiating. There are some employees that are not permanent employees, they're temporary employees, and this would provide paid leave for them, kind of with no restrictions. And the challenge to school districts then would be if we have substitute teachers who are their entire role is intended to be coming into the district to provide coverage for employees that are permanent employees. If they're earning time off, paid leave time off, then we would be paying substitute teachers to not come to work to cover for the teachers who are not here to provide education for our students. So in the memorandum that was provided to the members of the Human Services Committee, I think our counsel from Frantic for both District 65 and for District 202 tried to articulate why that could be an undue burden to local school districts, which is why the home rule municipalities are able to exempt us from that.
Thank you.
Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Harris. Aye. Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton. Aye. Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember Hadakaris.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries, and ordinance 42-0-25 is introduced and will be on the June 9th agenda for potential final passage. This concludes the substantive action for the evening. We now move to call of the wards. Councilmember Harris.
Thank you so much. Just wanted to make a comment. Love Your Block went really well. We saved T-shirts for all of the council members, so make sure you grab a T-shirt. I want to commend Evanston Police Department. We found a missing child, young man, and they stayed on this until they could get it resolved, which is a huge win, not only for the city, but for the family, as they were under great duress. And a shout out to our fire department on Mother's Day. Coming home from dinner, there was a fire, and our fire department was there, boots on the ground, again, just doing what we're supposed to do in the community. So I appreciate all of our public service. I appreciate our staff, and just look forward to a really good year.
Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got 3 things. Number 1, the June ward meeting will be Tuesday, June 3rd, 7 o'clock at Crown. This is going to be a special ward meeting. We're going to get an update on the Envision Evanston process. And then with the assistance of the League of Women Voters, we're going to do an interesting interactive World Cafe type discussion on Envision-related questions. So please join us at that ward meeting. We're going to also have snacks from the newly opened 4th Ward business Button Bakery on Main Street. Number 2, office hours, Saturday, June 14th at Berry Pike Cafe, 10 a.m. to noon. And item number 3, regarding the 801 Main Street acquisition, which failed to advance out of APW. This was item A12. I apologize for failing to read the room at committee, and this was voted down without discussion. I'm hoping that we can have some continued discussions and resurrect this in one way, shape, or form, because this acquisition is in the best interest of the neighborhood, the best interest of Evanston. So stay tuned for further discussion on that. Thank you.
Councilmember Burns.
No report.
Councilmember Sufferton.
No report.
Councilmember Davis.
I will be hosting office hours at Great Harvest Bakery on June 24th to 12 to 2 p.m. That's it.
Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you. I want to thank Councilmember Harris for her leadership on Love Your Block. I came in late to the game on this, but enjoyed the event very much up at Fleetwood Jourdain the other night, getting to meet a bunch of people who have some brilliant ideas on great things to do in the city of Evanston, and thankful that we had a little bit of money to throw their way. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Hadakaris.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Kelly.
No report.
Councilmember Nusma is recognized to make a motion.
Mr. Mayor, pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes 120/2C, I move that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding litigation, personnel, and purchase or use of real property. These agenda items are permitted subjects to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act, those exceptions being 120/2C, 1, C5, and C11. End of motion.
Second.
Whew, close call. Councilmember Nusma moves that the City Council resolve itself into an executive session to discuss the items just enumerated. Councilmember Rogers seconds. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Harris.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Councilmember Sufferton.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers. Councilmember Hadakaris.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
With 8 voting in favor and none voting against, the motion carries. And at 8:15 p.m., the City Council resolves into an executive session to begin immediately in the Council Library.